Hey, Joel and James, I hope everybody's doing okay. You guys are going to have a good Thanksgiving. I wanted to put together this presentation for you to give you a better idea of what the software does and give you a more better feel for the flow of the software. So I want to go through this, and what we'll do is we'll cover several topics. So overview of the software in general, talk about the bells and whistles, then look at the design flow for each of the three processes and how those applications run, and then look at the innovation updates that we want to do for liiv that will take this software and then customize it for you guys and add in some even better bells and whistles for you guys. Alright, so the overview of this is basically it's an EMR. I know, Joel, you keep asking me about that, but yeah, it's an EMR software. So the idea is to keep a digital methodology about tracking multiple data points for patients and keeping those over time and comparing those while you're monitoring and quantifying and qualifying patient measurements against known parameters to create design reports, and then creating something that will help protect the patients and the physician while ensuring better quality of care. And so all these reports are of course paperless, but they're also able to automate to PDF format. So then you can share them with the patient, or you can print them off and put them in a file if you wanted to. So the three major parts to the current software, again, you asked me a question of what's developed, what's not developed. This is the part that's developed. All the stuff that we're going to go through, this is the stuff that we had up for you guys, and it was a little bit older version than this one, but I wanted to show you guys what we actually have and then what we want to change. So the three major parts are the comprehensive laboratory intake and report, the dynamic health questionnaires and report, and the integrated medical wellness reports. So we'll start with the wellness one. The wellness lab one. So the wellness lab one, basically it's 200 different analytes, and of course we can expand that. It's completely dynamic. It's the largest database of age and gender specific lab ranges. It took about 6 months to put those data points together, and lots of time spent in the research facility up at KU Medical Center. So that's a wonderful database, and it's also copyrighted through the U.S. Copyright Office. The reports are of course color coded, so you can see within an instant. What we want to do is kind of use all those senses that no matter what level of expertise a patient is, that they can look at this and understand it instantly. And the color allows them to do that. So they know green is good, they know red is bad, and yellow is caution, just like stoplights. So we want to take what's already used by patients throughout their life and incorporate it in this in such a way that they can instantly recognize good and mediocre and bad. The optimal ranges are included in here, and also the reference ranges, and those are completely customizable. But one thing you've got to understand is that those reference ranges are based off of age and gender, and some of the optimal ranges too. So if this patient here is a female, 34 years old, if you did a 24-year-old male, you would actually have different ranges. And that's a critical piece that no one else is really doing out there. So that gives a unique selling proposition for you guys. We also embed the optimal range within the graph, so you can see kind of the cliff points of where you're going to fall off to the high, fall off to the low, and kind of where you're safe. But you can see that optimal is inlaid in there, and that way they instantly can recognize, gosh, I'm in normal, but I want to be in this better range. And you can see that it's not always going to be even. Of course, these are cortisols, but something like PSA, obviously it's going to be offset to the left, not in the center. And so some of these use formularies, and then some of these optimal ranges use customized set points. The percentages from reference and optimal ranges, you can see that over to the left side, and that helps the patient know that they're either within the range or kind of how far they are away. So you can see that morning saliva off to the right side, they're 16% from optimal. So even if they're in normal ranges, it gives them another kind of motivational factor that they can try to get improved health for. There's a simple explanation for each analyte, and so you can see that all these analytes are clustered together, and this is hormonal, whereas if they're thyroid will be put together, electrolytes will be put together, cardiovascular markers will be put together, and that's something that's very different very different than what's out there right now, because the key to doing this lab this way and creating a report that a patient could go home and show their spouse, and they might not know what an ESR is, right? But it's going to explain to them what that is and what that means. And my wife, she's got her master's degree from KU. She's a brilliant woman, and of course that was one of her things. She got her lab back from her physician, and it said her ESR is out of range. And of course she said, well, what's an ESR? Is this like scary? Is this life and death? What's going on? And I told her, don't worry, it's just a little bit of inflammation. And so, with these kind of reports, it allows the patient to really be engaged in their health and kind of understand in a very simple way what these things really mean. And so there's a simple explanation for them. The physician's report, of course, is going to have a different one. And so we can take a closer look at this. In this, you can see we make this very simple for the patient. We want this to be very organized. It always follows the same pattern, and this allows the patient to get used to these things and very comfortable with them. And then of course the laboratory interpretation software for the physician, the reports are going to be a little bit different, and you can see that it follows the same format, but instead of that simple explanation, we have a more complex scientific explanation. Of course, all these can be changed if you guys want any of these changed. That's not a problem at all. But this one will specifically say, look, if this is out of range for low, it's red, and it'll only give you the differentials and the interfering factors for that range. And so like some of those labs out there are going to waste paper and time putting the highs and the lows when all you really want to have is the information that's going to be vital for the patient. So if it flags low, here's what you need to be looking at. And I love these lists because this allows me as the physician to go through and say, okay, is this a truly low lab, or is there interfering factors that are artificially making this low? And so I can go through and I just check off what's most likely in there and what's probably not a problem there. And I've actually had several patients where they were diagnosed with polycythemia vera, so the red blood cells were too high, and the physician had been bloodletting with them for several years, and one of the differentials is just simple dehydration. And if you looked at I think it was 2 or 3 different analytes on those patients, dehydration came up several times. Alright, well, cut out coffee, soda, drink half your body weight in ounces of water, let's retest you, and guess what? They didn't have polycythemia vera. They had a misdiagnosis because of subclinical dehydration. So because of this test and the way that's laid out in this report, it was very easy to see that. And of course, this one doesn't have it, but a lot of them are going to have medications that are going to cause a big interference with these, and that's a very important part too, because you want to see, is this a medication-induced laboratory disruption, or is this truly a physiological disruption that we're looking at? And that way we have less misdiagnosis, less mistreatment. And here's another one for the physicians where you can see that a little bit closer. And then we have our laboratory interpretation summary page. And this one, this is, you have all those analytes spread out like they were before, and then this is one of the last pages for the lab part, and that shows in one sweeping picture what is going on with that patient. And so of course it's all based on color coding, so the patient can very easily look at this and go, oh, all the green ones are good, yellow ones are okay, the red ones are too high, and the dark red ones are critical range. And so it doesn't, kind of making it simple for the simplest user. That's really the interface that we want, and to really dumb down this process and make this easily understandable from the physician to the patient. And color coding really does that. Now, if they want to look, and of course you can see that the bars as they go to the right, they are of course longer as the ranges are more out of range, and so by that gives the patient another metric by which they can see how far they are off. Then the next page, and this is true for the questionnaire also, and we'll see that, but each report comes with a supplement recommendation page, and of course we can change this to be lifestyle, we can make it medications, we can make it whatever we want, right? It's going to pull from whatever data that we give it. But with this, it gives product information. It'll tell the patient the supported function of that and contraindication. So a lot of times, when we went around teaching physicians how to interpret lab reports and how to treat with nutrition, one of the things that, it's easy for that. There's lots of seminars on that. But what they don't teach doctors to do is when not to treat, when not to give a supplement. And that contraindication allows the protection not only for the patient, but also for the physician. And so, one of the benefits here is patients go home, they say, well, okay, this doctor told me to take these 3 supplements. Usually the husband says, well, what do they do? And of course the names are crazy, so the patients have no idea. And so they don't get that family support that they need to really have better continuation, better engagement in the healing process. And so with that, this allows them to say, okay, it's a lipotropic plus, well, what does that mean? And it tells them what it means. And so the patient doesn't have to remember these things. They can go back and read this and know what's going on. And then of course, if they have any medications that they start, any other supplements that they start, they can always look at the contraindications and say, should I be taking these 2 things together? And also, of course, the physician could do that. So that is a wonderful CYA or protection for them. And this is built off a very complex algorithm that ensures that we have very precise recommendations. A lot of reporting systems like this, I mean, gosh, we went through several of them, and you'd have anywhere from 8 to 29 supplement recommendations once you went through, say, a 60 or 70 analyte test. And so you'd have 3 or 4 supplements for each one, and of course that is just ridiculous. Nobody's going to do that in the end. So not only do these reports have to be able to say, look, if these are out of range, they need to trigger supplements, or they need to trigger a lifestyle response, or trigger a medication, but there is a delicate algorithm built in that has to say, when is it too much, when is it too little, when are we duplicating? And that's the key component that makes this really unique, is the ability to titrate these down to the most effective things for that patient. So that brings us to the last page of the reports, and this one is your prescription pad, if you will. And so this kind of explains to the patient, look, this is what your doctor recommends, but the ultimate decision, right, is for the physician to check off or put what they want in there. And this is the real CYA for the company, because this means the software is just making recommendations based off of standard protocols or algorithms, but the end control is the physician. So the patient's not diagnosing and treating, the software is not diagnosing and treating, the software is just making recommendations. The physician makes the final decision here. And so they check off the ones that they want, make any additional recommendations, they sign off on it, and then when do we want to see them back? Because the key when we used to teach about this software is, if I say take these supplements to help these conditions, you better be fixed, right? It better restore that physiology. And the only way we know that is if we do a reevaluation. And so it better work. If not, we need to make some changes to what we're recommending. So this page also allows a common problem that we have sometimes with patients, which is, hey, I can't afford all 5 of these supplements. What 1 or 2 things could I take? This allows the doctor then to make that decision. So it also includes the dosage that you can see there, which is different from the previous page. And of course that's pulled off of just basic SQL charts. That takes us to the questionnaire. And a couple things about the lab is that it's automated. So that's one of the integration things that we have to do for the software for liiv, is to work out those details with the lab company, and of course Camera can do that, where we're pulling over secured HL7 files, and then the software can take those HL7 files and repopulate them back into the program. Again, something already built in there. That's not a problem. So this takes us to our questionnaire, which is the second biggest feature here, and probably the most common feature that clinics will use, because not everybody will do laboratories for every single patient, but questionnaires should be the standard. And of course, one of the customizations that we want to do is to really take this and make it an intake process. That's something that of course isn't quite developed yet, as far as implemented, but it's something that we can very easily implement into this software that we're building. So the health questionnaire, we have 50 different questionnaires that are specific, like a diabetic questionnaire, a heart disease questionnaire, an arthritis questionnaire, and then you have one comprehensive questionnaire. It's built off 184 different questions, and it goes through and subdivides into systems down to 88 subsystems. And the reason it does that is because if you make a general, say, recommendation for cardiovascular, so let's say they have symptoms that say, hey, there's something wrong with their heart. Well, what part of their heart? Is it a vascular problem? Is it an inflammation problem? Is it a hypertension problem? And the treatments for that are going to be very, very different. And without the ability to tease that out within the questions and then create an algorithm that can use a little bit of artificial intelligence and say, this plus this minus this equals this. Okay, well that's the system that we are looking at. So, if it's cardiovascular system and we're talking about inflammation, all right, maybe a homocysteine redux versus doing a, garlic or a hawthorn for blood pressure problems, right? So that ability, and again, we've reviewed so many questionnaires, softwares over the years, and they're all like that. They're these very basic, binary type of algorithms where it's, if this answers yes, then it triggers this supplement. And of course, in the end, you usually get way too many supplements, and the physician's then confused and has no idea how to really titrate those down, or the patient's overwhelmed and says, yeah, it's not legitimate, they're just trying to sell me 100 supplements. And so the software is not doing people good if it's not able to make those kind of internal clinical decisions that a physician would make. And so this questionnaire is very easy to fill out. It's online, and they can even put it on their website. So if they have their own website, the patients can go there, fill it out, and for free, and it'll collect their data. So it'll collect their basic biometrics like their age and weight and height and all that kind of stuff, and all their email stuff. So once they fill this out, it says, hey, we've created an automated report for you. Please make an appointment to go over this report with the physician. And so it creates a portal of entry for new patients for that office. And this is really working wonders for a lot of physicians. So that integration online, or they can actually fill this out in the office. And then the staff can code this in. And the coding's really easy here, because if you we'll look at the intake here in a little bit for that, but it's all pre-marked no. And so basically, if there's any symptoms that don't apply to you, you just skip them. you don't have to waste your time filling in no. That's ridiculous, right? So you're only going to spend time on the things that are actually problems. And that saves you time, that saves staff time. And that way, entering that in for your staff, it might just be a couple minutes. We did these a lot at seminars. It wasn't a big deal. Once that's entered in, either online or in person, and then entered on the software by your staff, then you end up with this report. And this is just a little slice of that. But again, it is prioritized by color again, to where it's yes is always, orange is frequently, yellow is rare, and the software in the report will actually define what those mean to the patient. And so that puts all the red ones together, all the orange ones together, and all the yellow ones together, so you can see all the stuff that's going on with the patient and color coded by frequency. Because of that, I can then say, look, if we make these changes, I want to see those things improve, retest them in 30 days, those things should be less. And there is no greater selling point to your success than you take someone with 16 reds and 14 oranges, and now they have 2 reds and 3 oranges. That is amazing, because they can see that, and then they take those. Tell you what, 85% of healthcare is ran by women, right? The only reason men go is because the wife makes an appointment, and women love questionnaires. And women love reports because they can take and show their friends those reports. The more complex really you can make it for women, the more likely they are to drive to you, right? So they're going to drive other people to you. And so it's a great marketing tool. When you give these people reports, we get lots of patients that come in and say, hey, I saw that report, I want to get that done. How do I get that done? And so again, we just make it simple for them to use that process and get into the doctor. So those reports are great. You can also see it's broken out by general system, and that's just to help the patient kind of understand what systems might be affected there. Now, when the practitioner is trying to decide on supplements for what should I recommend, what should I not recommend, it has the questions. There's this matrix that's involved, and they can look at this matrix and say, okay, well, what was flagged the most? And based on that, they can say, well, let's start with these 2 or 3 supplements first. And so that's really only if you have too many supplements, or if the patient, because a lot of times these patients are just an absolute mess. And so this allows the physician to say, okay, you got a lot of stuff going on. Let's start with these 2 or 3 systems and start there and see what improves. And so that matrix makes it a lot easier. Now the questionnaire is going to have the same kind of supplement recommendation page that we saw before. Same supportive information, same contraindication, and of course they'll have the same prescription pad at the end. And again, the software is not making the diagnosis and treatment, the software is just making recommendations. So that takes us to the GreenMetaInfo part, which you guys are probably the most familiar with. And these are a few ways that we plan to import them in. Of course, there's a lot more that we plan on doing with them as a part of the resource biometrics. And so, something simple that would help the doctor, doing the integrative GreenMetaInfo reports, where integrates health concerns, wellness information, nutrient information, drug-nutrient interactions, drug-nutrient depletions, of course your peer-reviewed research to validate what you're doing. So if you had a drug like beta blockers and you wanted to look up something for a patient, you could look up the interactions, the uses, the depletions. All that stuff is at your fingertips. And so again, if the physician doesn't remember this right off the top of their head, then it's not a failure on their part, because they can have this produced for the patient, or before, like I'll have this produced for my patient before I see my patient, so I can go through these and then I appear like I know a lot more than I do, but it's because I have these great resources, of course. So great patient protection again with this, But you know, if a patient's going to take a beta blocker, and really you have those patients that they got these medications, they're going to keep using those medications, well great. If it's going to deplete coenzyme Q10, you better be taking coenzyme Q10 with it. And this allows the patient to really understand that, how important it is to get more coenzyme Q10 as a supplement if they continue to take the beta blocker, so they can feel good and do less damage and have more cellular energy if they're going to continue to take that medication. And also that they wouldn't want to do like a guarana supplement or vitamin C or ginseng with their beta blocker. So let's look at the design flow here, and this is, say, from your perception of when you're running the software. So the lab part's automated. It's very simple. Just patient completes the lab, the doctor sends it in, the lab sends the HL7 encrypted files over, and it's translated through the software, and then the doctor goes over the report with the patient. So they can just automatically generate that report, and it tells the doctor when those reports are available. This over to the right is the launch pad, and this is your jumping point place. And again, you can see that it's the same structure through the whole process, that it's the same color pattern, and that allows that familiarity and the ease of usability for the staff. Because in the end, you want it to where a brand new staff member could come in and still be able to figure this out. So we built this, the first platform we built lots of bells and whistles, and we used some really cool techniques. And what we found was that the doctors were not that smart, that the staff was not that smart. There was not that intuitive nature built into them, so the software had to have the intuitive nature built into it. And once we figured that out, all our support calls ended. You know, used to we get lots of questions about, okay, well, where's this button? How do I do this? And once you do that a couple times, great, let's automate that process. We did it wrong, let's make it easy for them. And that's what the redesign with this is doing, is it allows them a one view of, okay, here's the 4 things I would do. And gosh, I'm telling you, it made it so much easier. And you can see on here where it says process pending report result. That's where it's showing that you have labs that are ready to be processed. So you can create a new report, you can outsource the data, you can edit it, or you can view it, you can download a sample report, whatever you want to do. And so you know, it's easy to get started with something like that. It's very directed in which position you want to go. Once you're into it, you can see that we use the same methodology you would use for, say, processing an airline ticket. So you can see where you're starting, where you're ending, and where you are throughout that process. Now this is if you're going to do a data entry yourself as opposed to getting it automated. So patient brought in old labs, you can put those in. And you can see that you can you just type in, you start typing in the analyte, it drops down to so you can pick which one you want. You hit tab, put in the result, hit tab, hit enter, goes to the next one. And so within, you know, doing this at 1 time or 2 times, it gets really easy. And that's the way it's designed, is that you can use minimal keys to get this in as fast as possible. And then if you look at your results and you notice anything that looks out of range, then you can make that additional change. You can look at the tested units there, and then of course if you duplicate or something's wrong, you can always just click and delete it. And once you're done with that, you just hit generate report. And when you do that, it brings you to this screen. And this screen already shows you what's high, what's low, and what's going to be recommended. And from this staging place, you can then decide what you want to be on that report. And for new doctors or doctors that are, you know, not that familiar with some of these labs, they can actually look at what those are and then what products are recommended for those. And based on that, they can make changes. And so let's say you don't like, you know, lipotropic plus, you can delete that or change it to what you want. And so the physician always has complete control over what's recommended. Now it's very easy to add in preferences to this to say, look, I don't like this product, so every time it says this product, recommend this other product that I like. Let's say you get a new supplement that you really enjoy for thyroid glandulars. Great. Every time you recommend thyroid glandular, I want the new one that I started using. And if that changes, great. You can sit there and change that in your preference too. And that allows you to do the least amount of effort, and anything that you're going to do more than once, it needs to be automated. And that's what we do. And one of the other things that I use this screen for is if something's out of range, but I don't remember that really being out of range, I can actually then look at that and say, oh, well, maybe I entered it in wrong, go back, change it, and then regenerate the report. So the questionnaire part, whoops, sorry, let me go back up. Questionnaire part's the same thing. Same basic form. Do you want to create one? Do you want to edit one? Do you want to view one? Or do you want to download the blank questionnaires? So again, very simple, straightforward way to go about this without worrying about confusing any new staff. And then the printed out ones look like this. And so you can see that there's an R for rare, an F for frequent, and A for always. The new questionnaires actually have this defined out what those mean so that the patient knows why they're filling this out. And anything that's a no, you just don't put it in there at all. Now the online one has it pre-marked no, so then you only click what you want. So this is, again, gives 3 different answers, and those have trigger 3 different priorities within the algorithm. This is what the online version looks like. And this is whether your physician's putting it in, or your staff, or whether they're doing it online as the patient. It's the same thing. And you can see that the far left side, NA, does not apply, is pre-checked. So all they have to do is take their mouse and click, 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 and they're done. Now, once you generate that report, then it goes to this, again, page like we saw in the lab, where it allows me to see what's being triggered and then make any changes that I want to that. So, great for marketing, and really the main thing is it's great for patient compliance. When you take a patient and you show them a lab report and then they show you that lab report to their friends, you get more business, which is awesome. You get to help more people. But also, on the other side, the patients are going to be more compliant if they can see, especially in color, what is going on with them, what's being recommended, and that it actually panned out in the end. So we want to see that 3-month, 6-month progress and improvement. Now the health management reports, you can see here that we have health concerns, drug nutrient interactions, herbal nutrients. There's more tabs that we're going to actually integrate for GreenMetaInfo. And so you go through here and you can look at the health concerns, patient information, vitamins, minerals, herbs, drug nutrient interactions, search the database. And this allows them to really pull out and customize. So if you have a patient that has, say, diabetes and heart disease, you can pull those 2 reports out together, and then say they're on 3 different medications. Great, pull that together and you create one report with 2 conditions and 3 meds for that patient. Or of course even for yourself, because again, not everybody starting in natural medicine is there yet, and they are still learning. And one of the most important things you could do is go through this stuff before the patient comes in and really have a greater feel for what you're doing. This is what that software looks like. It's the same thing. Again, you have data tables that you're pulling from, and then over to the right you can see the different categories and what information under there that you're going to be generating. So for like this one, there's 4 different medications that are going to be put out into a single report. This one, you can see that there's 2 different health conditions that are going to be put out there. Again, there's options to generate what part of that report you want in there, or to delete it in case you accidentally put something on there you didn't want. So always customizable, even through the whole process. Same thing, of course, with vitamins, minerals, specialty nutrients. Same thing. You can put as many of those as you want, and so that you have a customized report for that patient that includes everything that they have going on, and you have all that peer-reviewed information, at your fingertips from GreenMetaInfo. And then one of the cool things too is to have all these kind of like diet and health tips, that we can either use standardized or we can customize depending on what you guys want to do, and those will help create like a more systematic approach towards health, wellness, or natural medicine or functional medicine with patients. So in the end, better patient management equals better results, and this is great software. I mean, it looks pretty simple, I think. I hope we've made it look pretty simple. The reality is, behind the scenes, it's a very complex and data-intensive tool. Now, from there, the last thing I want to talk about is the innovations for liiv. And here you have a picture of what I'd like to see that change into from the front side. And there's a lot more bells and whistles here that we can do. And again, this is all stuff that, as we've been developing software, that I've kind of put together, and I would like to see those things implemented either for you guys or for somebody else. But if we could do it for you guys, I think that'd be great. I mean, the software already sets you guys light years beyond what anybody else is doing out there, and this then puts you light years beyond the light years. It's very surprising that there just isn't a lot of software developers out there doing this, but I think the reason is that a lot of times you have the educators that say, you know what, we need software to do this, and they get the lowest bidder, and then they end up with this just old, outdated software by the time it comes out. And we have people paying $3,500 for just laboratory interpretation software, and it is not dynamic. It's a very static, dumb software, and it's just terrible. And so it's better to offer somebody a Ferrari at Toyota prices. Give them more than they asked for. So we can do that with you guys, and a couple of the things that we want to do is integrate the intake process to really make it a true intake process. And that's something I've been talking with you guys quite a bit about. But all that stuff that you would do for a physician for the intake, here's all the medications, here's all the supplements, here's all my health concerns, here's what I eat, drink, breathe, do, exercise, all that stuff, and then tie that together with the labs, tie that together with the symptomatic questionnaires, and then start flagging some of these things for the physician. So if they have inflamed liver, say their AST, ALT is high, and they're on Lipitor, it flags it for the doctor, right? It flags it for the patient. So, if they're taking, not Crestor, but say Lipitor, and they're feeling, fatigued all of a sudden, and that matches up, well, then it needs to flag that, hey, that also depletes coenzyme Q10. The patient's gonna feel tired. So maybe making an adjustment to the medication or supplementing them with what's being depleted is going to really be that thing that sets that patient apart and feels better. Flagging and tickle notifications. So if a patient needs to be doing labs in 3 months, it lets the patient know in 3 months. It lets the doctor know, hey, this person needs to be coming in for lab. Did you schedule them? And that's a great way to prevent patients from really falling through the crack there. Weight management integration, I think that would be an awesome tool. In our practice, I mean, the average weight loss is 22 pounds, and it's very simple. It's just lifestyle based, but you have to have ways to engage the patient into that information. And right now, that's a great time to be doing this, because there's so much technology out there that's moving in this direction. And so, again, you guys don't want to miss the bus on that. Health and wellness medical calculators, everything from automatically calculating BMI to visceral fat percentages. Those would be great. Differential diagnosis automation, that's again another one where you saw in the lab that has the differentials for the doctor, but really that should be automated, and that would be a very easy process for us. Natural and Drug Reference Center, of course, an FDA recall and food recall. I'm already tied into that, and so I know what food's being recalled, even health food that's being recalled, and any medications that are being recalled. Well, you know exactly what patients have on those medications if you have that ability. And so I remember back when Vioxx was pulled, I was doing internal medicine rounds, and the day it got pulled, we had a Vioxx rep there stocking the shelves, and you know, he told us that the doctor came in there and said, "Hey, don't you know this is pulled from the marketing?" And he said, "No, if it was, I would have been told." And of course, we took him out to the waiting room, and on CNN, there it was. Vioxx was being pulled from the market, right? So it should automatically flag. That information would come to us before CNN would get it, and we would be able to then communicate that with those patients. And that's true whether it's a supplement, whether it's a medication, or whatever. I mean, imagine when, some of these most recent ones were recalled. To be able to offer that as a protection for your patients is excellent. Nutritional Research Assistant, again, that's integration with GreenMetaInfo, to where patients or physicians can look up at a fingertips ability peer-reviewed quality research that helps them justify why they're making these recommendations, either as an educational tool for them or a justification tool for them. And then, of course, the Consumer and Enterprise Edition, developing one for the end user as the public, I think would be excellent, especially if we tied it to consumer prepaid labs and to supplements. Then you can be making 3 times the money off this software. And then the same thing for the Enterprise Edition, offering the same kind of developments we have for the physician, but offering them for companies. And again, offering them discounts on things like supplements and labs, and then of course getting a percentage off those. So, all right, well that's it's of course 12:46 here. So the only 4 kids. This is the only time I get a chance to do these things. So I hope I sounded coherent again, and I hope that really gives you a better grasp of what we're trying to do here with you guys, and the value of the software that we already have developed, and again the tremendous value that we're going to be able to create by merging with a product with liiv. You guys are doing a great job, and we're very proud to be a part of this process. And man, it just seems like it's like bread and butter, gluten-free bread and organic butter, right? Alright, well, I hope you guys have a wonderful night, and again, I look forward to talking to you guys. Thanks.